is something that the Commission should consider, as Commissioner Wu said, specifically for this NCD. It does say in the staff notes that NCDs, these types of districts, allow for more tailored control and help to protect or enhance unique characteristics associated with the neighborhood. Changes that are made to a named commercial district only apply to that district versus the generalized NC1, NC2, and NC3s where they would have to be applied citywide. So I think for me, we're talking about a specific NCD as being proposed, and in my mind, we can deal with the medical cannabis issue within that context. Now, I also agree that we've asked the supervisors previously to give us better tools, perhaps re-examine the original legislation, which does result in this clustering effect that we're trying to deal with. And everybody knows that. So I think some movement on that note would also help us out in the future, but I'm quite willing to move ahead with this one on its own.
This is an extremely difficult discussion, and the more diverse and well-founded opinions I hear, the more difficult it gets. Because each point is understandable, defensible. Instinctively, I would gravitate more with the concerns expressed by Commissioner Gordon, because since we have asked and spent a lot of time thinking about controls and clustering with no help, I don't want to use this NCD as an example because the remaining locations in San Francisco are so difficult on their own. Few or none of them are in established commercial corridors. Why would I create special protections within the corridor when the rest of the rules which govern our preliminary selection where they can be are already so restrictive that there's hardly any room to move? We know that in more than 60 to 70% of the San Francisco proper, there is no possibility of locating any additional CDs because there is always a school, a kindergarten, or something which restricts the proper distance for any new MCD aside from the inappropriate location in a completely residential neighborhood. Having said that, within the almost 2-mile-long NCD, as we are hearing today, there are actually 3 specific locations on the corridor and 2 peripheral locations off the corridor. The tack I would like to examine, and I'm not sure if we can bring that into this particular approval today, is not to talk about a separation by 300, 250, or 500 feet, but talking about implementation of MCD applications over time. So if there would be 3 approvals, none of them can all appear at the same time. But each of them has to go through the process of establishing themselves as a credible, desirable business before anybody else within 250, 300, 500 feet could even come along and ask for the next one. But there's another mechanism to let it sort out what an MCD is, can be, or should be, and then let legal process like an NDR sort out as to whether or not there is support or opposition to additional ones. I'm trying to look for other tools. I might not be able to maturely have a discussion on that today, but I would like for us to work with the supervisors, to work with the Department of Health, to work with the active operators to find other tools. And I have a hard time making as far-reaching a decision anchored in this approval, which in principle I approve.
Mr. Starr and the parking part of it. Now, I think I went over the boundaries of this NCD, and I think it was along major streets pretty much. It's along Mission, it's along Geneva, and I don't think it goes into the neighborhoods themselves, really, the side streets.
Correct. It does have some side streets, but they tend to be larger ones. It goes on Ocean Avenue, Alamany, Geneva, a little around a little street called Rolfe, I guess after the mayor. But it's pretty wide too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, but the only concern, I'm probably going to make a motion in a second, but I assume that there's this, also along with the parking changes, there will be, is there diversity of most neighborhoods in the city have zoning for 2 units or 3 units, and now a number of these neighborhoods have come up with this indefinite amount of zoning number of units. It's more based upon the square footage and the density per square foot. Is that part of this legislation or not?
The density set, I think, every 1 unit per 600 square feet of lot area, so it depends on how large the lot is. It's not like the RTO, which allows you to put as many units as you can inside the building envelope, so long as you can provide the open space and the food for it. It does set a cap based on lot size.
Commissioner, just to remind, this only applies to the neighborhood commercial district, not the residential.
Not the residential too, but, you know, I'm just concerned when I struggle with the whole parking issue. I'm fine with what's being proposed for now. I would prefer the CU process, but I think Commissioner Wu made a good point. We're not talking about a citywide policy, we're only talking about a policy in this area. And if we want to do 500 foot, that would be okay with me. I would move approval, but I would modify the parking. There would be no minimum and no maximum under my motion. Did you want to add something to
I just for the discussion that possibly coming from the supervisors, the commissioner just talked about allowances of MCDs on second floors. I think that's worthy of consideration, provided that there is access, disabled disability access to get to the second floor.
That could be part of my motion, certainly with the Commissioner Hillis was in agreement. I certainly would want to see that as be part of it, because I don't see a reason why I think we have to cut the floor rather than be more security there. So that's my motion. If I get a second, I will try it. Commissioner Boyd.
To support the other aspects of the legislation that we all mutually agree upon. Like, I know you don't agree with the parking Commissioner Antonini, but you know, the creating the name NCD, the parking controls, removing the alcohol restricted use district, which obviously changes because of the NCD, the prohibition on French financial services, and the 5-foot height bonus, but also recommend that, you know, that maybe the supervisor continue to work with the medical cannabis community in the neighborhood to come up with something that that I think is a little more thoughtful. I mean, my concern goes back to the fact that we've said that there's a limited amount. Typically, I would say not a problem. We have commercial districts that ban services. But 90% of the city allows you to have a financial service institution. No one's going to go without a bank if it doesn't have a bank. And that's true for a lot of other kinds of uses. But this use is a little different because it's such a, I don't know if the number is 90% of the city's off limits. I don't know what that is, but trying to look at the bigger picture and not one neighborhood is why I have the concern. And then the final concern, of course, is that if you make limit in an area that's already restricted, it just further intensifies the clustering in the areas where it's allowed. And so in the South of Market and the other areas that already are have a lot of clustering of the NCDs, if you put this in there, then you create a situation where you pretty much force an entire area to become the medical cannabis dispensary location. So I like to support a motion that we support the other elements that most of us agree upon and ask that maybe there can be some more working with the community, the medical cannabis community, and the outer neighborhood, outer Mission neighborhood and Excelsior district neighbors to come up with something that could be agreeable for this corridor, and then further ask the Board of Supervisors to look at the bigger picture, because this is not a problem that's going away.
And that's exactly what I was hoping would be said here, that we'll be kicking the can down the road. And certainly last year when this legislation came before us, there were 3 dispensaries that were approved on the same day. And there was a consideration to ask for tools, so I come with tools. And you don't create these, when tools are provided, you don't suggest what they can be. So I don't necessarily think that's the best, process, but that's
And I get that, and in fairness to you, I get exactly where you are, and I would say that it was a unique situation of 3 at once, but in other neighborhoods, it's a lot more, and I guess that's where I struggle with it, right? I mean, I think that what we asked for was citywide tools, and that's something we still haven't gotten, and I don't think that that tension is gonna go away in the near future, and I really hope that we can figure out something on it. I think that the members of the community said that there were other options that they had in mind, and maybe there's a way that the community can come together that something unique would be crafted in your neighborhood that works for your neighborhood. I don't know, but another neighbor suggested a different threshold, but I just feel like for trying to look at the bigger picture, as kind of what we're asked to do.
The medical cannabis dispensaries that are in my neighborhood, that have been signed in my neighborhood, so I have been in discussion with them, particularly the ones on the same block that have been approved. They're actually, the one's already in business and the one's going to start very soon. We're trying to work out with neighbors how to make sure that everyone can be working well together in the community with good communication, good sense of safety, good sense of what the neighborhood is. So we might, I'm working in doing that. In terms of like overall rules, I think no matter what, I came to you with something else. You would talk about the impact of what we have in the Excelsior district to the rest of San Francisco would be the same.
There seems to be a little more discussion. Commissioner Sugaya. You're not. Commissioner Anthony. Yeah, I agree with Supervisor Avalos. We often complain that the supervisors both, change things that we approve, and now we have an opportunity to approve something, so I think we should take a position, and I like this 500 feet. I'm probably going to vote no on the motion for the parking and also for I like the 500 feet. I'd rather we take a definite stand on this thing and then said, let the supervisors, they're going to discuss it anyway, but at least as a commission, we should take a position on this, and would be fine with what the supervisors propose. So I'm a no on the motion. Commissioner Hillis.
I think we should definitely address the concerns that are being raised by the Excelsior neighborhood now. And I get the citywide issue, but we're the planning commissioner, we can ask that we hear the citywide issue next week or 2 weeks from now and talk about it, because I think it's legit to talk about that kind of citywide and making sure, other districts, we can, MCDs can locate in other districts where they're currently not allowed. So again, I'll speak, I think the 500-foot ban could lead to a situation where you have 6 blocks and 6 MCDs, and maybe that's not right. But if you did it as a CU, you could have 2 MCDs in one block and none in the remainder of the corridor, which I actually think makes sense, especially given there are landlords out there who won't lease the MCDs. So you might have a situation where 2 are located in one block, but it's not an over-concentration because there are others elsewhere along the corridor, which I'm okay with. So, yeah, I would move to adopt this with modifications where we convert the restriction, the 500-foot restriction, to a CU specifically in this corridor.
Second. Okay. So it wasn't, yeah.
There is an initial motion with a second. There's a second motion with a second. We should take up the first motion and then go to the second and first and then the second.
Right.
Can we just get a chance to get my head around the second one?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a motion by Commissioner Borden, seconded by Commissioner Moore, to adopt a resolution recommending approval for the proposed new NCD and its controls, with exception to requesting that the Board of Supervisors continue additional outreach to NCDs and residents of the neighborhood regarding controls for medical cannabis dispensaries. On that motion, Commissioner Antonini? No. Commissioner Borden?
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis?
No.
Commissioner Moore?
Right.
Commissioner Sugaya?
No.
Commissioner Wu?
No.
And Commissioner President Fong?
No.
That motion fails 5 to 2, 2 to 5. Commissioners Antonini, Hillis, Sugaya, Wu, and Fong voting against. Shall we take up the second motion?
Commissioner Wu first.
So I believe I can support Commissioner Hillis's motion, but I strongly want to say I don't want to see all NCDs turn to CUs across the city. I don't think that's right, but this one is a special case where if it's located within 500 feet, then it's a CU process as opposed to a ban process.
Commissioner Boyd.
Yeah, that's exactly my position as well. I do not support conditional uses across the city. I think if we want to give control in that way, I'm willing to support that, but I don't think that that is the right approach.
Kind of chiming in, this is really not too different than what we did in Upper Market last week. You know, we really created this very specific policy with a radius clause of numbers of feet. And it's really sort of a pilot for that particular area to the given conditions. And so I feel this is the exact same thing. I do feel that by whatever reason, timing, approving 3 in one night, we changed that block overnight. And I didn't feel very good about that. And I don't have a problem with the MCDs there, but to do it in 3 in one night when it was ordered rough. And none of those community folks bragged. If you remember, they were pretty upset. Some of the families that were in there. So, that's my position. Commissioner Sagaya.
Well, that's why I'm going to vote against the motion, because I think that turning it into a conditional use, despite Commissioner Hillis's argument, we have no tools to actually decide whether it's necessary or desirable. And we're going to fall right back on how close are they. And that is not a consideration. But anyway, I think the ban is simpler, easier, and the way to go.
Commissioner Antoni.
Well, I will be supportive of that aspect of the motion. I think we do have tools. I think we've seen situations where certain dispensaries have come up and they've been represented in a certain way by not only the community of MCD, the community, but also sometimes the police department and the neighbors who come up. So I think we can probably. I still have problems with the parking part of it, so that's going to be difficult for me. Although I think allowing one-to-one's okay, but every neighbor, actual resident who's come out to speak from the district itself has said parking is really important to them. It's going to just make the problem worse.
Commissioner Moore.
I just wanted to put to record that when we approved the 3 CDs in one location in one day, that we all reached out to the board and specifically targeted certain supervisors who are normally open and accessible to the issue to please help us providing tools. We took it as far as we normally can do that, looking at reputations. Who has a better reputation than the other? Who is more charitable? And all of those things. And none of the tools we tried to create on the one work for us to make a shadow of a doubt on one and not on the other. So we were literally stuck. Particularly if we are supposed to represent a policy of access and of what San Francisco stands for, 3 in one night is a little bit more than any of us can handle.
Commissioner Sagaya.
It's reactionary law.
Commissioners, then on that motion and second to adopt a resolution recommending approval for the proposed new NCD and its controls modifying the control for medical cannabis dispensaries to convert the 500-foot restriction to a trigger for CU. Commissioner Antonini? No. Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Hillis?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Sagaya?
No.
Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
And Commissioner President Fong?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. The motion passes 5-2, with Commissioners Antonini and Sagaya voting against. Commissioners, I'll place you on item number 10.
Okay, the next honoree is Denise Story. Denise, come on.
Denise is a tireless advocate and documentarian who we're really indebted to, not just for taking photographs tonight, but for so much she does to help document community activities. This is called the Political Documentaries Award for providing communication media on social justice issues, of which she is a great advocate. And this is our organization, Central City Democrats, we, the members of Central City Democrats, hereby do recognize Denise Doherty for providing communication media on social justice. Thank you. We're going to finalize.
We're going to get heavy here. So, you're going to get one from the mayor's office. You're going to get one from the board of supervisors. By the way, all 11 signatures.
11 signatures.
All right. Including the newest supervisor, that's Breed. The newest supervisor's name is on there too. The actual new supervisor. And Board of Equalization. And I'd like again, Mark Leno. And Tom Amiano. And the last one here is from Bill King.
Bill King.
A lot of what I do is just sort of, somebody once said that 90% of it is showing up for stuff, you know, and so I just show up for stuff and then you all inspire me. And I'm inspired by the cannabis community and Shona Mokinara's work in civil rights. I'm inspired by the LGBT community and Jen Collins. I'm inspired by the Milk Club and by the Access of Love Club. I'll have you all get up there if you want to come and help me sing these awards. Come up here. Access of Love, all y'all. Come on.
Get into a group picture.
All y'all have been in my shows, too. So. And I have another show called Essex Legal Buzz. It's not a documentary. It's more or less kind of like picking up where current TV, they inspired me a lot. So I have my own talk show, and I want you to watch it or even be on it. You got to make everybody more liberal. That's the liberal club. Thank you. Thank you. I love y'all.
The League of Cities obviously, you know, has a very strong lobby, and they opposed Tom Amiano's bill because they felt it wasn't strict enough, whereas patient advocates were more concerned that we didn't want to have just the businesses represented. We wanted to make sure that medicine was affordable and that everything was to scale so that it wasn't just big pot that got the permits. We want to make sure that the small providers and the patients are able to publicly access their medicine. Right now, here in San Francisco, we have, you know, patients that still are not able to publicly access their medicine because of prohibition pricing. So I think our calls mattered in the point that we were recognized by Assembly Member Bill Quirk, who said that, you know, publicly that he was concerned that patients weren't consulted regarding Tom Amiano's bill. And patients really have yet to be consulted regarding either bill. They're really, you know, kind of right now working with the industry players and law enforcement, so it's how do we get our voice in the door. One comparison that's been made is that the growers and the stores need separate pieces of legislation and also separate pieces in the permitting process, because if you look at it, you know, agriculture is not the same permits as your corner grocery store. So we need to look at this in comparison to how other agricultural facilities work. You know, I mean, Safeway is permitted differently than, you know, a small grocery store. So it all needs to come into scale and into proportion. I think we do need regulations. I'm pro-regulations, but I'm for regulations that that people can comply with and that will lessen the amount of arrests and problems that occur, not just make legality possible for the 1%ers and the pop movement. You know, we don't need that.